We're looking outside right now with the blue skies, very hot, very sunny kind of feeling today. But look at this, our dew point temperatures, our humidity has gone down a little bit. And this is exactly the setup that we were expecting for the middle of this, unfortunately, hot week in September. Temperatures way into the 80s right now. The average high is about 87, so we're way above that already in some spots. The feels like temperature, we don't talk about this when we get these cool fronts, of course, because the air is so dry. It actually just feels like what it is outside. But we are looking at our feels like temperatures into the middle 90s, and our live radar very quiet. And we've been expecting very little to maybe no rain through this week because of the big high pressure. So hot and sunny conditions today, a little less humid. We've been talking about those north winds bringing in some very slightly drier air. So not sure if we're going to feel a big difference, especially in the afternoon when we'll hit about 92 or so for the high, but at least it won't be quite as muggy as it could be. The next 8 hours you can see bring us eventually into the 80s. If you're out around sunset, which is now very close to 7 p.m. on the dot, it's going to be about 85 degrees by then, and then we'll continue to drop through the 80s later on. Tonight, overnight, we'll look for North Shore lows about 69, 70, south of the lake about 74, mostly clear. And actually, when you're in the lower 80s by late this evening after sunset with some lower humidity, might be a fairly nice evening. We'll see. Looking at the tropics, I know a lot of people want to get into this, so we do have the 3 different areas highlighted from the National Hurricane Center, either as a named storm, in fact, even a major hurricane, or just as an area of investigation. Now these, of course, this is a major hurricane, Fiona, pulling away, as we were saying, from Turks and Caicos and from some of the islands in the Bahamas, and then forecast to become a Category 4, like I was showing you earlier in the show, in the next day or so. And then it will get close to Bermuda and then eventually weaken some as it nears Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. But Tropical Depression 8 farther out, it is showing some signs of coming together, but a pretty small system here. I'll put satellite imagery so you can see it here. And this one expected to sort of meander in the same kind of location far from the U.S. mainland. So not expecting any threats from these two for the U.S. and the Gulf Coast. Now this one, of course, Invest 98. It is nothing developed yet, but it does have a high chance of developing, and we are seeing some of these higher clouds just on the southern edge of this broader circulation, but we may see it try to tighten up and develop a bit. Notice that it is still outside of the Caribbean Sea. So we're talking about a system that is way outside of certainly the Gulf of Mexico and not even making it to the Caribbean just yet. In fact, we are seeing some drier air on the northern side of the system, and right now we still have plenty of dry air in parts of the Gulf and into even parts of the Caribbean Sea. So this is not going to be anything that comes at us anytime soon, if it ever comes near us at all. This is going to be the steering pattern for next week. Again, we're talking about not in the next few days, but a full week plus out that this system might take this turn into the Caribbean Sea and then perhaps turn off a bit more to the northwest in the western part of the Caribbean. But we, of course, have had this big high, and that's been bringing us the hot, sunny conditions this week. That may retreat a little bit and kind of break down a bit over to the west. And it looks like this high will not be quite strong enough to pick this one up as it's farther south and turn it north very early in the game, like we've seen with a couple of systems so far this year. What we might see is eventually this trough, which this placement could be different. It is a full week out. So this placement could be a little bit different off to the west, to the north. It might dig down a bit deeper. It might stay a bit farther north, but this might kind of draw whatever the low pressure system is by then to the north. So that's why we're watching it. For now, it is just something to watch. Again, a week plus, model accuracy and forecast accuracy goes way down. Invest 98 might develop as it either nears the Caribbean Sea or once it gets in the Caribbean. That would be later this week into this weekend. No threats here for the next 7 days or maybe even longer because there's so much uncertainty this far out. It's just impossible to say what this might do. I know you want to probably see at least a model. This is Fiona. This is the European model showing a full week from today. A low pressure area you can see here in the Western Caribbean. And as for the GFS, it has a little stronger but pretty similar location. So certainly something that we'll be watching, but just impossible to say where it will end up, how far into the Gulf it might get, etc. But it wouldn't even approach the Gulf, as you saw there, until more than a week from now, maybe the middle to end of next week. So for now, We're looking at fall on Thursday, looking really hot, maybe near record highs by then, about 94, 95. Little break in temperatures by the weekend, and perhaps a weak cool front at the start of next week, Monday into Tuesday.